Hello, my name is Damian Markovich. I am 33 years old, and my life, at least until recently, has always been like a serene river flowing through the bustling streets of New York City. But don't let that calm appearance fool you. Beneath that shell, I always felt something was wrong, like a storm quietly building up, waiting to erupt. I am a mature, hardworking man, but introverted to the point where sometimes I wonder if I'm truly living or just existing. I live in a small apartment in Brooklyn, just a subway ride away from Manhattan, where I work as a mid-level manager for Blackwood Corporation, a giant conglomerate specializing in technology and finance, with skyscrapers lit up all night. My job is stable, the salary is enough to live comfortably, but it's not my passion. It's just the way I maintain my independence, something I've learned since childhood. I grew up in Buffalo, a gray industrial city near the Canadian border where the cold winds blowing across Lake Erie seem to remind you that life is never easy. My home was in a working-class neighborhood where Balkan immigrant communities gathered, chatting in their native language that I only understood in bits and pieces. My parents, Milan and Anna, were immigrants from the Balkans who came to America in the late 1990s when war had ravaged their homeland. They never talked much about those years, just shaking their heads and saying, "War, you don't need to know about it." But their eyes, especially my mother's, always held something heavy, as if they were hiding a secret they couldn't share. I was an only child, but not the spoiled kind. My father, Milan, was a tall, strict man with sharp, cold eyes and a voice as deep as stone. He worked at a steel factory in Buffalo, coming home with the smell of sweat and metal clinging to his clothes. He spoke little, and when he did, it was usually short commands. "Eat, Damien. Have you studied yet?" I don't remember the last time he smiled at me. My mother, Anna, was different. She was gentler, always busy with cooking or sewing to earn extra money. She often sang sad Balkan folk songs, but whenever I asked about the family or the homeland, she would fall silent, her eyes reddening as if holding back something. I always felt there was an invisible wall between me and my parents. They took care of me, fed me, bought me clothes, but real closeness was absent. When I was little, I thought it was just their personality. Balkans are tough, not ones to show emotions. But as I grew older, I realized something was off. My innocent questions about my birthday, about relatives back home, were always deflected by my mother or shut down by my father. Don't ask unnecessary things. I learned to stop asking, but the feeling of alienation grew inside me like a shadow I couldn't escape. At 18, I left Buffalo to attend university in New York City. I paid for my tuition myself by working at coffee shops, washing dishes in restaurants, anything to avoid asking my parents for money. Not because they didn't want to help, but because I wanted to prove I could stand on my own 2 feet. I studied business administration, graduated with good grades, and was lucky to land a job at Blackwood Corporation, a large financial conglomerate headquartered in Manhattan. Starting as a low-level employee, I climbed to mid-level manager, overseeing a small team in the finance department. The work was busy, but it helped me avoid thinking too much about the past, about those unanswered questions. My life in New York passed steadily, almost numbly, until I met Samantha. She was the light in my gloomy days. Samantha is a doctor, 30 years old, with curly brown hair and a smile that could melt anyone. We met by chance in a coffee shop in Brooklyn when I dropped my coffee cup and she helped me clean the floor. From then on, she entered my life like a breeze, bringing a warmth I'd never known. 2 years ago, I proposed to her on a small bridge in Central Park, under the hazy golden lights. She said yes without hesitation, and for the first time, I felt like I truly belonged somewhere. But even Samantha, with all her love and patience, couldn't erase the emptiness inside me. She often said, "Damien, you should call your parents more. They're getting old, they need you." I would just nod, but every time I picked up the phone, I hesitated. Call to say what? Ask if they're okay when I know the response will be short and cold? Or ask about the secrets they never want to share? Samantha didn't understand. Not because she didn't try, but because she grew up in a warm family where people hugged, laughed, and there were no suspicious silences. I tried to live my life, tried not to look back, but every night lying in bed hearing the noisy traffic on the streets of Brooklyn, I would think about Buffalo, about the small house with peeling walls, about my mother's gaze when she looked at me as if wanting to say something but then stopping. I thought about the times my parents whispered in the kitchen thinking I couldn't hear, about the old letters in the drawer that I accidentally saw but didn't dare open. Once when I was little, I asked my mother, "Do I have any siblings back home?" She froze, her hand holding the vegetable knife trembling, then said, "No, just you." But her voice faltered as if she was trying to convince herself. My job at Blackwood Corporation kept me busy, but it also exhausted me. I managed a team of 5, always chasing financial reports, meeting with bosses, and handling emails late into the night. The corporation is a massive machine with gleaming glass buildings and people always in a rush. I don't particularly love it, but I'm good at what I do, and that makes me feel valuable. Sometimes I look out the office window at the crowds below and wonder, is this really where I belong? New York is a city of dreams, but I'm not sure what my dream is. I've lived 33 years with a vague sense of doubt, as if my entire life was a dream staged too cleverly, too vividly to seem real. I tried to fill it with work, with Samantha's love, with runs along the Hudson River to forget. But life has its own way of forcing you to face the truth. One day, everything changed. A phone call from the hospital shattered the world I had carefully built. My father, Milan, had an accident. He was in the emergency room and they needed me immediately. As I rushed out of the office, my heart pounding, I didn't know that this trip would open a door I never wanted to step through. The door leading to the truth about myself, about my family, and about a past I was never allowed to know. I rushed out of the Blackwood Corporation building, the neon lights of Manhattan flickering like shards of a shattered dream. I hailed a taxi, almost shouting at the driver, "To Mount Sinai Hospital as fast as possible." On the way, I gripped my phone tightly, rereading the message from Samantha. "Damien, your father had a car accident. Come to Mount Sinai right away. I'm here. My father, Milan, lives in Buffalo, more than 6 hours' drive from New York. Last week, he mentioned a rare trip to Manhattan to meet an old friend from the Balkan community. He was staying at a small hotel in Queens, and the accident must have happened on the nearby highway." I called my mother, but the phone rang without an answer. I sent a message. "Mom, Dad had an accident. I'm heading to the hospital. Do you know anything?" No response. I frowned. Perhaps at this hour she was busy at church, where she often went to pray on Wednesday evenings. The feeling of unease inside me grew, as if something was wrong, not just about my father's accident, but about our entire family. When the taxi stopped in front of the hospital, I bolted out, forgetting to pay. "Hey, mister," the driver called, but I hastily threw a $20 bill through the window and ran into the lobby. The smell of disinfectant and the murmuring of nurses made my stomach churn. I approached the reception desk, my voice trembling. "I'm Damien Markovich. My father, Milan Markovich, is in the emergency room. I need to see him right away." The woman at the desk nodded. "The doctor will come out to talk soon. Please wait a moment." I paced back and forth, hands shoved deep into my coat pockets, trying not to imagine my father lying motionless on a hospital bed. Then a familiar voice rang out, "Damien!" I turned around. Samantha was standing there in her green doctor's scrubs, hair tied up high, her face pale but still managing a reassuring smile. She rushed over and hugged me, and I clung to her like a lifeline. "Sam, my dad. How is he?" I asked, my voice faltering. She took my hand and led me to a quiet corner of the hallway. "I'm handling his case. He was in a car accident on the highway near Queens. A truck lost control and crashed into his car. He has multiple fractures and severe blood loss. My team and I are doing everything we can, but..." She paused, her eyes full of worry. "He needs a blood transfusion immediately. His blood type is AB negative, which is quite rare. Damien, can you donate blood? I nodded immediately. Yes, take my blood as much as you need. Samantha led me to a small lab room. A nurse drew my blood, her movements quick and efficient, but each second felt like a knife stabbing into my heart. I sat there watching the dark red blood flow from my arm into the tube, praying that this would save my father. I wasn't close to him, but the thought of losing him suffocated me. He was a strict, cold man, but he had raised me. I needed him to live, not just to save him, but so that one day I could ask him about the silences in our family. A short while later, Samantha returned, her face even paler than before, her eyes wide as if she'd seen a ghost. She held a piece of paper, her hand slightly trembling. Damien, she said, her voice so low that I had to lean in to hear. There's something. You can't donate blood. I frowned, confused. Why not? I'm healthy, no illnesses at all. What's my blood type? It has to be compatible, right? She took a deep breath as if preparing for a blow. Damien, your blood type is O positive. It's not compatible with your father's. But it's not just that. She hesitated, looking straight into my eyes. I requested an urgent DNA test to confirm blood donation compatibility because sometimes blood types can be unclear. The results show you're not his biological son. The world around me shattered. The sounds of machines, footsteps, nurses' chatter, all vanished. Only Samantha's voice echoed in my head like a knife slashing deep into my chest. Not his biological son? I repeated, my voice faltering. What are you talking about? How could that be? Samantha placed her hand on my shoulder, trying to keep me calm. The DNA results show no genetic link between you and your father. Damien, you need to stay calm. Your mother is on her way here. You need to talk to her. She might know something. I shook my head, feeling like the floor was collapsing beneath me. No, that's impossible. They're my parents. They raised me. But then fragmented memories flooded back. My mother's evasive glances, my father's coldness. My questions about the past always brushed aside. Suddenly it all made sense, but in a way I didn't want to accept. I felt like I was being choked, as if the air in the room wasn't enough to breathe. Suddenly my phone buzzed in my pocket, interrupting my chaotic thoughts. I looked at the screen. It was my mother. I took a deep breath, trying to suppress the anger and fear surging in my chest, and pressed the answer button. Mom? My voice faltered, almost a whisper. Damien! My mother's voice was panicked, almost shouting through the phone. What happened to your father? You said he had an accident. How? How is he now? She spoke rapidly, her voice trembling as if trying to hold herself together. I just got home and saw your message. I left my phone behind when I went to church. Oh God, Damien, I'm sorry. I didn't know anything. Tell me, is your father okay? I gripped the phone tightly, feeling like my heart was being squeezed. Mom didn't know about the accident, and her voice was full of worry and pain, just like a wife hearing that her husband was in critical condition. But that didn't ease the storm inside me. I wanted to shout, to ask her right away about the truth Samantha had just revealed, but I held back. Dad, he had a car accident in Queens, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He's in the emergency room at Mount Sinai. It's serious, Mom. Come here right away. Oh God, my mother whispered, her voice choked. I'll find a way to get there immediately. Stay there with your father, Damien. Don't leave him alone. She paused, as if wanting to say something more, but then just said, I'll get there as soon as possible. The call ended, and I stood there staring at the dark screen, feeling like the whole world was spinning. Samantha placed her hand on my shoulder, her eyes full of concern. Are you okay? She asked, her voice gentle but unable to hide the tension. Was that your mother calling? I nodded but couldn't say anything. I wasn't okay. How could I be okay after just learning that I'm not the biological child of the parents I've called Mom and Dad for 33 years? Samantha seemed to understand my state of mind. She hugged me and then quickly returned to the emergency room. I sat down on a hard plastic chair in the waiting room, my mind blank yet flooded with questions. I thought about my mother. Did she know I wasn't their biological son? Was she hiding something from me, like how she always avoided questions about the past? I glanced at the clock. Only 20 minutes had passed, but each second felt like a century. I imagined my mother hurriedly packing in Buffalo, perhaps calling for a night bus or asking someone to drive her to Manhattan. I wanted to believe she was coming for Dad out of love for him. But part of me doubted. If she knew I wasn't their biological child, was she coming to face me or to continue hiding? I paced back and forth in the waiting room, the cold white lights of the hospital seeming to illuminate the dark corners of my soul. Old memories surged. The times my mother quietly cried in the kitchen. The times my father snapped at me when I asked about our Balkan homeland. The old letters in the drawer that I never dared to open. I always thought it was because of the war, the traumas my parents carried from their ravaged homeland. But now I wasn't sure. If I wasn't their child, were all those silences, all those secrets because of me? 6 hours later, as dawn's light began to filter through the hospital windows, I saw my mother enter the lobby. She looked haggard, her thin coat covered in road dust, her eyes red and her face gaunt. She clutched her purse tightly as if it was the only thing keeping her upright. "Damien," she called, her voice choked, rushing over to hug me. I stood still, not returning her embrace. The scent of her old perfume, cheap lavender, evoked childhood memories, but now it only added to my pain. "Where's your father?" she asked, her voice trembling. "How is he?" "I tried to get here as fast as I could. The bus got stuck in Albany. She stopped, looking into my eyes, and seemed to sense something. "Damien, what's wrong with you? Is something the matter?" I took a deep breath, feeling like my heart was being squeezed. Samantha had updated me that Dad was still in surgery, his condition unstable. But I couldn't wait any longer. I needed answers right now. I looked straight into my mother's eyes, my voice firmer than I ever thought possible. "Mom, I'm not your and Dad's biological child, am I?" My mother froze, her hands gripping the purse tightly, her eyes panicked as if I'd just torn open a secret she'd buried her whole life. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her silence, full of fear and guilt, said it all. I felt my heart shatter into pieces, but I knew this was just the beginning. The truth, no matter how painful, awaited me ahead, and I wouldn't stop until I found it. I led my mother to a small corner in the hospital waiting room, where the dim white lights couldn't hide the tension on her face. She sat down on the chair, still clutching her purse tightly as if it were the last shield between her and me. I stood in front of her, not wanting to sit because I feared that if I relaxed, I would collapse. "Mom," I said, my voice low but sharp and cold. "I'm asking again. I'm not your and Dad's biological child, am I?" My mother looked up, her red-rimmed eyes now glistening with tears. "Damien," she whispered, her voice choked. "Why are you asking that? You are my son. I raised you." But her words trailed off as if she herself didn't believe what she was saying. "Don't lie," I gritted my teeth, causing a few people in the waiting room to turn and look. I lowered my voice, but the anger still burned in every word. "Samantha did a DNA test. I have no genetic connection to Dad at all. Mom, tell the truth. Who am I? Where did you and Dad find me?" My mother burst into tears, covering her face with both hands, her shoulders shaking violently. Her sobs echoed in the quiet space, and a part of me wanted to hug her, to tell her everything would be okay. But I couldn't. Not now, when my entire life was being torn apart by a truth I wasn't prepared to face. "Damien," she finally said, her voice weak, "I didn't want you to know. I never wanted you to know." "Know what?" I pressed, stepping closer. "That I'm not your child? That you and Dad have lied to me for 33 years? Mom, I need the truth, right now." She took a deep breath, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "All right," she said, her voice trembling like dry leaves in the wind. "You're not our biological child, but you are our son, Damien. We love you. We..." She paused as if struggling to find the words. During the war in the Balkans, everything was so chaotic. Your father and I fled from the war, from the bombs, from the deaths. We had nothing, just each other. And then we found you. Found me? I repeated, my voice full of doubt. Found where? What are you talking about? She bowed her head, her voice almost a whisper. In a hospital, in a devastated village. I was volunteering there, caring for the wounded. One night I saw you, a newborn baby lying in the rubble of a hospital destroyed by bombs. No one knew who you were, no one came to claim you. I picked you up and took you away. Your father and I decided to keep you, to raise you as our own. I stood frozen, feeling like the blood in my veins had stopped flowing. You picked me up from the rubble? I said, my voice faltering from the absurdity of the story. You want me to believe that you found me like some discarded item and you didn't report it to anyone? Didn't look for my real parents? Mom, this isn't true, is it? My mother looked up, her eyes full of pain, but also something like desperation. It is the truth, Damien, I swear. Your father and I couldn't have children. When I saw you, I thought you were a gift from God. We had nothing, but we had you. I couldn't leave you there in a place where death could come at any moment. I shook my head, trying to digest her story. But something wasn't right. My mother's tale was too convenient, too vague, like a fairy tale made up to soothe a child. Mom, I said, my voice cold, if you picked me up, why didn't you report it to the police? Why didn't you look for my real parents? What do you know about them? Or did you just want to keep me to what? To have a child you couldn't have? My mother cried again, but this time she didn't answer right away. She bowed her head, her hands trembling on her lap. Damien, I'm sorry, she said, her voice almost inaudible. I just wanted to protect you. I didn't want you to know the truth because I was afraid you'd leave us. You are everything your father and I have. I felt a surge of anger rising, but at the same time a profound pain. I wanted to believe my mother, to believe that she had saved me from the war, that she loved me like her own flesh and blood. But the gaps in her story made it impossible for me to trust her completely. Why were there no documents? Why hadn't anyone searched for me? And why, over all these years, had she and my father always kept their distance as if I were a reminder of some sin? Mom, I said, my voice almost a whisper. If you don't tell the whole truth, I'll find it out myself. I won't stop until I know who I am. I turned away, no longer wanting to look into her eyes. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, and my mother, the woman I once thought was my whole world, was now just a part of the mystery I had to unravel. I left the hospital that morning without saying another word to my mother. Samantha tried to hold me back, her eyes filled with worry, but I just shook my head. I need time, Sam, I said, my voice hoarse. I need to figure this out. She nodded, though I knew she wanted me to stay, to confront my mother right then and there. But I couldn't. My mother's story, that she picked me up from the rubble of a wartime hospital, sounded like a hastily fabricated lie. I didn't believe it, and I wouldn't stop until I uncovered the truth. Back at my apartment in Brooklyn, I felt like a stranger in my own home. The photos on the shelf, me with my parents at a park, me on my graduation day, now seemed like fragments of a deception. I sat in front of my computer, opened the browser, and started searching. If my mother wasn't telling the truth, I would dig into the past myself, into the Balkan War years that she and my father always avoided. I started with simple keywords: Balkan War 1990s, missing children, Balkan refugees. Articles and documents appeared, each line cutting deeper into my doubts. The Bosnian War, Kosovo massacres, streams of refugees fleeing death. I read about thousands of children who went missing in the chaos, children separated from their families, kidnapped or sold in exchange for survival. An article from a human rights organization made my heart clench. In the 1990s, many refugee families exploited missing children to gain priority for immigration to Western countries. Some children were given forged documents, becoming the children of people who weren't their biological parents. My blood ran cold. Could that be what happened to me? Had my mother and father, the people I called family, kidnapped me to secure their ticket to America? The thought made me want to scream, but I held it in and kept digging. I turned to online databases of human rights organizations like the Red Cross and Balkan refugee support groups. I registered for access to an archive of missing persons records, entering the vague information I had. My birth year, 1992, the Balkan region, a wartime hospital. While waiting for responses from the organizations, I visited the New York Public Library, which housed extensive records on the Balkan War. I spent hours in a quiet room flipping through old newspapers reading about destroyed hospitals and abandoned children. But nothing specific matched my mother's story of a baby picked up from rubble. I found a report from a human rights organization noting that in 1992, hundreds of newborns vanished from hospitals in Bosnia and Serbia, many believed to have been kidnapped by desperate people trying to flee the war zone. I paused, my hands trembling as I read one line in the report. Some refugee families used undocumented children to forge birth certificates, helping them gain priority in U.S. and European refugee programs. It felt like someone was squeezing my chest. If my mother and father had done that, if they had taken me from a hospital and forged papers to bring me to America, my entire life was a lie. I hadn't just lost my identity, I'd lost the chance to know my real family. I returned home, my mind spinning. Sitting on the sofa, I stared at the family photo on the shelf, my mother, father, and me, a 10-year-old boy with an awkward smile in a buffalo park. I wondered, if they kidnapped me, why did they raise me? Why not abandon me once they reached America? But then I recalled my father's distant gaze, my mother's silence whenever I asked about the past. Perhaps they didn't abandon me because I was their opportunity, their ticket to a new life. But the love I once felt from my mother, her clumsy hugs, her sad lullabies, was that real? I called Samantha, needing someone to share the storm raging inside me. "Sam," I said when she answered, "I think my mother is lying. Her story doesn't add up. I found documents about children kidnapped during the Balkan War. I think my parents might have done that." Samantha was silent for a moment, then spoke, her voice gentle but firm. "Damien, you need to stay calm. Don't let these thoughts consume you. If your mother isn't telling the whole truth, you'll find out. But be careful, don't let the pain blind you." I nodded, though she couldn't see me over the phone. "I can't stop, Sam. If they took me from my real parents, I need to know. I need to know who I am." I hung up, feeling like I was standing before an abyss. I wasn't just searching for the truth. I was facing the possibility that my entire life was a lie constructed to cover up a crime. The next day, I received an email from a human rights organization. They confirmed that there were records of children missing from a hospital in Bosnia in 1992, but information was limited due to the war destroying most documents. They sent me a short list of cases, and one detail made my heart race. A young couple described as influential in their community had reported a newborn missing from that hospital in the same year I was born. Their names weren't specified, only a note that they had immigrated to the U.S. after the war. I closed my laptop, feeling like the world was tilting. I didn't know who that couple was, but I knew I had to find out. If they were my real parents, then my mother and father, the people I called family for 33 years, what had they done to me? Had they stolen me from another life, another family, just to serve their own purposes? I felt both furious and heartbroken, as if my heart were being torn in two. I picked up my phone, my finger hesitating over my mother's number. I wanted to call her, to scream and demand she tell the whole truth, but I knew she wouldn't speak. Not now, with my father still in the hospital, with her torn between the fear of losing her husband and the fear of being exposed by me. I decided to dig deeper on my own, to reach out to human rights organizations and people who still held memories of the Balkan War. I wouldn't let this secret bury me. I stood up and looked out the window of my apartment where the traffic of Brooklyn flowed as if nothing had changed. But for me, everything had collapsed. I wasn't just searching for my identity. I was seeking justice for myself and perhaps for those who lost me 33 years ago. That night, I didn't sleep. My mind was reeling with what I had read. Stories of children kidnapped during the Balkan War. Families exploiting the chaos to forge documents. Children like me, stripped of their identities to secure a new life for others. I couldn't bear the thought that I was part of such a scheme. My mother and father, the people I once loved and trusted, might have stolen me. Not from rubble, as my mother claimed, but from the arms of my real parents. I needed to act, to confront my mother again. This time I wouldn't let her evade me, wouldn't let her use tears to hide the truth. I grabbed my car keys, determined to return to Mount Sinai Hospital, where my mother was still by my father's side. He had just made it through the critical phase but hadn't yet regained consciousness. On the drive, I felt like I was heading into a storm. Rain began to fall, the droplets pounding against the windshield as if trying to drown me. I thought about the email from the Human Rights Organization, about the influential couple who lost a child in a Bosnian hospital in 1992. Their names weren't mentioned, but that detail haunted me. Could they be my real parents? Were they still alive, still searching for me? And if so, what had my mother and father done to take me from them? When I arrived at the hospital, it was morning. My mother was in the waiting room, her face haggard, her eyes swollen from crying and lack of sleep. She looked up when she saw me, her expression a mix of hope and fear. "Damien," she whispered, standing to hug me. But I stepped back, not returning her embrace. "We need to talk," I said, my voice cold. "Now." She nodded and led me to a secluded corner of the hallway where no one could overhear. I didn't beat around the bush, unwilling to waste more time. "Mom," I said, looking straight into her eyes, "I've done some research. I know about the children kidnapped during the Balkan War, about families forging documents to gain immigration status. Your story about picking me up from rubble is a lie, isn't it? Did you and Dad kidnap me?" My mother froze, her face turning ashen as if all the blood had drained from her body. She opened her mouth but couldn't speak. I stepped closer, my voice trembling with anger and pain. "Mom, I found documents. Hundreds of children went missing from wartime hospitals. I know you and Dad came to America in the late 1990s. If you don't tell me the truth, I'll go to the police. I'll find out whether you want me to or not." She collapsed into the chair, covering her face with both hands, her soft sobs echoing in the quiet space. "Damien, please don't," she whispered, her voice choked. "I'm begging you." She looked up, her eyes no longer just pained but resigned, as if she knew she could no longer escape. "All right," she said, her voice frail. "I'll tell you. But you have to promise. Promise you won't destroy us." I made no promises. I just stood there, arms crossed, waiting. My mother took a deep breath, wiped her tears, and began to speak, her voice trembling like dry leaves in the wind. "During the war, your father and I had nothing. We lived in fear and hunger. To get to America, we needed a reason. The refugee programs prioritized families with young children, but I was infertile, unable to conceive. Your father, Milan, he found a way." "Found a way?" I repeated, feeling like my heart was being squeezed. "What do you mean? What did he do?" She bowed her head, her voice barely audible. He took you from a hospital in Bosnia. One night when bombs were falling and everyone was fleeing in chaos, he saw you in a crib unattended. He picked you up, forged a birth certificate, and claimed you as our own." I protested. "Damien, I swear. I said it was wrong, but your father, he said it was the only way we could survive, to have a future." I felt the world crumbling around me. "You're saying Dad kidnapped me?" I nearly shouted, causing a passing nurse to glance at us. "You knew about it and still went along with it? You let him turn me into a tool to get you into America?" My mother sobbed, clutching her head. I didn't want to, Damien. But I had no choice. We would have died if we stayed. Your father said you had no one, that your parents had died in the bombings. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. And when I held you, I loved you from that very moment. You became my son no matter how it happened. I stepped back, feeling betrayed by the person I had loved most. You love me? I asked, my voice thick with bitterness. You love me, but you let me live my whole life with a lie? You knew my real parents might still be alive, still looking for me, and you did nothing? My mother looked up, her eyes filled with pain. I didn't know, Damien. I swear your father said they were dead. I had no way to verify it. I just wanted to protect you, to give you a better life. I shook my head, unable to believe what I was hearing. What do you know about my real parents? I asked, my voice trembling. The hospital's name, the date, anything. Tell me, Mom. She hesitated, then spoke, her voice weak. The hospital in Sarajevo, August 1992. I don't know your parents' names. Milan. He handled all the paperwork. I only know they were a young couple, possibly prominent, because your father said they had a nice car parked outside the hospital before the bombs fell. I committed every detail to memory, though my mind was reeling. Sarajevo, 1992. A young, prominent couple. The pieces started to align with the email from the Human Rights Organization about the influential couple who lost a child at the same time. But I couldn't be sure, not yet. I looked at my mother, the woman I once thought was my entire world, now just a stranger with guilt-filled eyes. Mom, I said, my voice cold, if I find my real parents and if they're still alive, you and Dad will pay for what you've done. My mother collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably, but I couldn't comfort her. I turned and walked down the hospital hallway, my heart heavy. I was furious at the betrayal, yet pained by the love I still felt for her, however flawed, like an unhealed wound. I knew my father was still in the ICU, but I couldn't visit him. Not now, knowing he was the one who took me from that hospital, turning me into a tool for their American dream. I called Samantha, briefly recounting what my mother had confessed. Damien, she said, her voice full of concern. No matter what happens, I'm here for you. I nodded, though she couldn't see. I know, Sam, thank you so much. I hung up, feeling like I was stepping onto a path with no return. The truth my mother had revealed was only part of the story, but it was enough to shatter me. I would keep digging, to Sarajevo if necessary, to find my real parents and to confront what my mother and father had done, no matter how painful it would be. I returned to my Brooklyn apartment but couldn't sit still. My mind was reeling with fragmented pieces. The Sarajevo hospital, August 1992. A young, prominent couple, and my mother's confession that my father had taken me during the chaos of war. I opened my laptop and continued searching, but the online documents only provided vague information. I needed something concrete, records, papers, or at least a name. I sent an email to the Human Rights Organization that had previously responded, providing the new details from my mother. The Sarajevo Hospital, 1992, a missing newborn. I prayed they could find something, even a small clue. While waiting, I decided to take action. I contacted an NGO in New York that supports Balkan refugees, asking them to connect me with people who worked in wartime hospitals. A woman named Jelena, a nurse in Sarajevo in 1992, agreed to meet me. I took the subway to a small cafe in Queens where she was waiting. Jelena looked older than her years, her face weathered with wrinkles that seemed to recount the war's toll. You want to know about Sarajevo 1992? She asked, her voice low but sharp. I briefly shared my story, about my mother, her confession, the hospital from which I was taken. Jelena listened, her eyes darkening when I mentioned children being kidnapped. Those were chaotic times, she said. Bombs falling, people dying, hospitals lacking everything. Many children were abandoned or taken. Some people exploited the war to do terrible things. I remember one case at the Sarajevo hospital. A young couple lost their newborn son during a night of bombings. They came back to look for him, but the baby was gone. My heart pounded. "Do you remember their names?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Or any details?" Yelena shook her head, her eyes filled with regret. "It's been over 30 years, I don't remember clearly. But they were influential, maybe business people or officials. They had a nice car, rare during the war. I heard later they immigrated to America, but I'm not sure." She paused, looking at me. "You think they're your parents?" I nodded, not daring to say it aloud. Yelena gave me the phone number of a former colleague, a doctor who worked at the Sarajevo hospital, and advised me to contact him. "Be careful, Damien," she said before I left. "The truth can sometimes hurt more than you expect." I called the doctor, but he was retired and living in Belgrade. I sent him an email hoping he might recall something. While waiting, I submitted a request to the New York police to investigate my parents' immigration records and any information about children missing from Sarajevo in 1992. I knew the process could take months, but I couldn't wait. I needed to act to keep myself from going mad. Samantha called me that evening, her voice full of concern. "Damien, are you okay? You haven't been back to the hospital since yesterday. Your mother's asking about you. She's really shaken." I felt a pang in my chest thinking about my mother, but I couldn't face her now. "Sam," I said, "I'm looking for my real parents. I can't stop. My mother, she's lied for too long." Samantha was silent for a moment, then said, "You have the right to know the truth, but don't let it destroy you. You're still Damien, no matter who your parents are." Her words were like a cool breeze in the storm, but I knew I couldn't stop. I thanked her and hung up, diving back into the clues. A week later, I received an email from the Human Rights Organization. They sent a brief file from a 1992 Red Cross report. It contained information about a couple named Ivan and Katarina Blackwood, who lost their newborn son at the Sarajevo hospital in August 1992. The exact date on my forged birth certificate. The name Blackwood jolted me. Blackwood Corporation, the company I worked for, was founded by Ivan and Katarina Blackwood. I felt the world tilt beneath me. Could it be? Could Ivan and Katarina Blackwood, whom I only knew through articles and shareholder meetings, be my biological parents? I opened the Blackwood Corporation website, searching for information about Ivan and Katarina. They were a Balkan couple who immigrated to the US after the war, building a tech and finance empire from scratch. An old interview revealed they had lost a child during the war, a pain they never overcame. I looked at their photo, Ivan with deep, soulful eyes, Katarina with a sad smile, and felt an eerie familiarity. Was I imagining it, or did their faces actually resemble mine? I sat there, my mind spinning. If Ivan and Katarina Blackwood were my real parents, my entire life was a cruel twist of fate. I, a mid-level employee, had been working for my own parents' company without knowing it. But I couldn't jump to conclusions. I needed proof, confirmation. I called the Human Rights Organization again, requesting more details about Ivan and Katarina's file. I also contacted a private investigator in New York, asking him to look into any connections between the Blackwoods and my parents' immigration records. While waiting, I was caught in a storm of emotions. I was both exhilarated at the possibility of finding my real parents and terrified of what it meant. If they were my parents, what would I do? Knock on their office door and say, "Hi, I'm your long-lost son." They were wealthy, powerful people, and I was just an ordinary man living a life built on a lie. Would they accept me? Would they even want me? I thought about my mother, Anna, who raised me. Despite her lies, despite her complicity in my father's kidnapping of me, I couldn't deny the years she cared for me. The meals she cooked, the lullabies she sang, the times she cried when I was sick. Her love, however flawed, was real. But now that love was tainted by guilt, and I didn't know if I could forgive her. Samantha came to my apartment that weekend, bringing a pizza box and a worried look. "Damien," she said, taking my hand, "you're exhausting yourself. Have you found anything?" I told her about Ivan and Katarina Blackwood, about the strange coincidence with Blackwood Corporation. She listened, her eyes wide with astonishment. "If they're your parents," she said, "that's a miracle, but you need to be sure. Don't let hope blind you." I nodded, but deep down I knew I couldn't stop. I had come too far, knew too much. I would keep going no matter where the truth led. I planned to meet Ivan and Katerina Blackwood, using work as a pretext to approach them. I needed to see them, hear their voices, look for any sign to confirm my suspicions. And if they were indeed my parents, I'd face an even bigger question. What would I do with this truth, and with the people who raised me on a lie? I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my face. The deep eyes, the straight nose, the features I never thought resembled anyone. But now I wondered, were these the features of Ivan and Katerina Blackwood? Was there blood running through my veins? Or was this all a dream I'd conjured? I knew I was about to enter a new chapter, one filled with danger and pain, but I couldn't turn back. The truth was out there, and I would find it no matter the cost. I spent the next few days planning my approach to Ivan and Katerina Blackwood. As a mid-level manager at Blackwood Corporation, I could request a meeting with them under the guise of work, but I needed a plausible reason to avoid suspicion. I sifted through the financial reports my team was working on, crafting a presentation about a process improvement project that I knew would catch the attention of senior leadership. After sending an email requesting a meeting, I received a response from Ivan's assistant. A brief meeting was scheduled for Wednesday at Blackwood's main office in Manhattan. The days leading up to the meeting felt like a fever dream. Each night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, imagining the moment I'd face the Blackwoods. What would I say? How could I ask about their past without revealing my suspicions? I revisited an old interview about them, reading every line about the pain of losing their child during the war. "We lost the light of our lives," Katerina had said in one article. "Not a day goes by that we don't think of our boy." Those words cut into my heart like a knife. If I was that boy, why was I taken from them? And if it was true, how could I face the fact that my adoptive mother and father, the people who raised me, had built their lives on a crime? On the day of the meeting, I stood in front of the mirror in my apartment, adjusting my tie, trying to maintain a calm exterior. But my hands trembled as I knotted it, and my heart pounded as if it might burst from my chest. Samantha called before I left. "Damien," she said, her voice gentle but worried. "Be careful. Don't let your emotions take over. If they're your parents, this will be complicated. You need proof before you do anything." "I know," I replied, though I wasn't sure I could stay calm. "I'll get a DNA sample somehow. I need to know the truth." Samantha was silent for a moment, then said, "You're not alone, Damien. I'm always here." Her words were like a cool breeze, but they weren't enough to quell the storm inside me. I arrived at Blackwood Corporation's gleaming glass headquarters in the heart of Manhattan. Ivan's office was on the top floor with a view of the entire city. When I walked in, Ivan stood to greet me, his smile polite but unable to mask the weariness on his face. He was about 60, with silver hair and deep, soulful eyes that felt strangely familiar. Katerina sat beside him, her brown hair streaked with gray and tied neatly, her gaze sharp yet gentle. "Mr. Markovich," Ivan said, his voice warm and steady, "I hear you have a process improvement proposal. Let's hear it." I began my presentation, struggling to keep my voice steady, but my mind was fixated on observing them. The way Ivan nodded as I spoke, the way Katerina tilted her head as she listened, it all stirred a sense of familiarity I couldn't explain. I found myself searching for similarities. Ivan's straight nose, Katerina's subtle smile, even the way they crossed their arms. Was I imagining it, or did I actually resemble them? The meeting lasted 20 minutes, and I seized the opportunity to extend the conversation. "Sir, ma'am," I said as I wrapped up the presentation, "I heard you both lived through the Balkan War. I have roots there myself, through my parents. It must have been a tough time, wasn't it?" Katerina stiffened slightly, her eyes darkening. Ivan glanced at his wife, then turned to me, his voice lower. Yes, Mr. Markovich, it was a dark time. We lost many things, more than words can express. Katerina gave a sad smile but said nothing. My heart raced. I wanted to ask directly about the child they lost, but I knew I had to be cautious. When the meeting ended, I saw my chance to obtain a DNA sample. Ivan left his coffee cup on the table, and I lingered under the pretense of cleaning up my documents. As they left the room, I quickly grabbed a tissue, carefully wrapped the rim of the cup, and slipped it into my bag. I knew it was sneaky, but I had no choice. I needed evidence. I contacted a private DNA lab, sending the sample from Ivan's cup along with my blood sample from the hospital. While awaiting the results, I dug deeper into the Blackwoods records. An old article revealed they had funded organizations searching for missing children after the Balkan War, a decades-long effort that yielded no results. A strange pain gripped me as I realized they might have been searching for me for 33 years, while I worked right under their noses, oblivious. A week later, the DNA results arrived. I opened the email from the lab, my hands trembling. The results confirmed I was 99.9% likely to be Ivan Blackwood's biological son. I sank into my chair, feeling the world tilt around me. Ivan and Katerina Blackwood were my biological parents. I was the son they lost, taken by my adoptive father, Milan, from the Sarajevo hospital during a chaotic night. I didn't know whether to feel joy or pain. I had found my real parents, but what did that mean? They were successful, wealthy people living in a world I didn't belong to. My adoptive parents, the ones who raised me, were kidnappers who stole me from another life. I thought of my mother, Anna, and the years she cared for me, her sad lullabies. Did she truly love me, or was it just a way to live with her guilt? And my father, still in the hospital, did he know I would uncover this truth? I called Samantha. My voice choked as I told her about the DNA results. "Damien," she said, "this is a miracle, but it's also a challenge. What will you do now? Will you tell them?" "I don't know," I admitted. "I want to meet them to tell them the truth, but I'm scared. Scared they won't accept me, scared they'll hate my adoptive parents, and I still have feelings for my mother, Sam. Even though she did wrong, I can't fully hate her." Samantha was quiet for a moment, then said, "Do what feels right. But remember, you're not just their son. You're Damien, the strong man I love." Her words made me smile, if only briefly. I knew I couldn't delay any longer. I had to meet the Blackwoods again, not as an employee, but as their son. I scheduled another meeting, this time under the guise of a supplemental report. But in my heart, I knew this would be the fateful encounter. I prepared myself to tell the truth, to face them, and to confront myself. Standing outside the Blackwood building, looking up at the top floor, I felt like I was stepping into a new chapter of my life, one I didn't know would bring joy or pain. But one thing was certain. The truth had been found, and I would no longer run from it. I stepped into the elevator, my heart pounding as if it might burst through my chest. In my coat pocket, I carried a carefully folded copy of the DNA test results, like a talisman or a bomb capable of destroying everything. I had rehearsed dozens of times what I would say, but every time I imagined looking into Ivan and Katerina Blackwood's eyes and saying, "I'm your son," I felt suffocated. Would they believe me? Would they embrace me, or would they see me as a stranger trying to intrude on their lives? The elevator doors opened and I stepped into the top floor office. Ivan stood behind his desk, reviewing a document, while Katerina sat by the window, gazing at Manhattan's skyline. They both looked up as I entered, offering polite but distant smiles. "Mr. Markovich," Ivan said, his voice warm and steady, "I didn't expect you back so soon. A supplemental report, right?" I nodded, trying to maintain a calm facade, but my hand tightened around the DNA results in my pocket. "Sir, ma'am," I began, my voice slightly trembling. "I'm not here today to talk about work. I'm here for something personal, something very important." I paused, taking a deep breath. I think I might be your son." The air in the room seemed to freeze. Ivan frowned, his eyes sharpening. Katerina sprang from her chair, her hand covering her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. "What did you say?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Our son? Are you joking?" I shook my head, pulling the DNA test results from my pocket and placing them on the desk. "I know it's hard to believe, but please read this. I had a DNA test done with a sample from Mr. Blackwood. The results show a 99.9% probability that I'm your son." I paused, looking into their eyes. "I was born in Sarajevo, August 1992. I was raised by an immigrant couple, but they're not my biological parents. They took me from a hospital during the war." Katerina approached the desk, her hands trembling as she picked up the test results. Ivan stood beside her, reading over her shoulder, his face paling. They looked at each other, then at me, their eyes a mix of hope and pain. You're Marco?" Katerina whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "My son. My Marco." "Marco?" I repeated, my voice faltering. The name felt foreign, yet like the final piece of a puzzle falling into place. "I'm Damian Markovich. That's the name my adoptive parents gave me. But if I'm your son, then maybe I'm Marco." Katerina sobbed, rushing to hug me so tightly I could barely breathe. Ivan stood there, his eyes red, but he didn't move, as if afraid this was all a dream. "We've been searching for you for 33 years, Katerina cried, her hands stroking my hair as if I were still a child. "We went to the hospital every day after the bombing, begging the police, the Red Cross, anyone. They said you were dead, buried in the rubble. But I never believed it. I knew you were alive." I stood there in her embrace, feeling both warmth and estrangement. I wanted to hug her back, to feel the joy of a son reunited with his parents, but I couldn't. Not when the image of my adoptive mother, Anna, lingered in my mind, with all the years she cared for me built on a lie. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice choked. "I don't know how to feel. I only just learned the truth. My adoptive parents, they took me from the Sarajevo hospital. I don't know who they are anymore." Ivan finally stepped forward, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Damian," he said, his voice low but firm. "If you're our son, you're the greatest gift God has returned to us, but we need to know what happened. Who took you? Why?" I told them everything, about my adoptive parents, my mother's confession that my father had taken me to forge immigration papers, my life in Buffalo, the years I grew up feeling out of place. They listened, Katerina still holding my hand, tears streaming down her face. When I finished, Ivan shook his head, his voice thick with anger. "Those people stole you from us. They stole an entire life. We'll bring them to justice." I shook my head, feeling like my heart was being torn in two. "I don't know if I can do that," I said. "My mother, she raised me. She loved me even if it was wrong, and my father, he's in the hospital, he might not make it. I don't know if I can turn them in." Katerina looked at me, her eyes filled with pain but also understanding. "You're a good man, Damian, or Marco. You have our heart, but you also have the right to live with the truth. We lost you once, and we don't want to lose you again." I nodded, but inside I was a tangled mess. I felt like I'd been robbed of a life, with Ivan and Katerina, with opportunities I never knew. But I was also grateful for my adoptive mother, despite her complicity in the crime. The meals she cooked, her clumsy hugs, the nights she stayed up when I was sick. All of it was real, even if built on a lie. I left the Blackwoods office with a promise to stay in touch. They wanted me to do an official DNA test with both of them to be certain. I agreed, but in my heart I knew the results wouldn't change. They were my biological parents, and I was the son they had lost. As I stepped out of the Blackwood building, it started to rain. I stood under the downpour, letting the cold droplets soak my coat as if they could wash away the emotions tearing me apart. I thought of my adoptive mother, my adoptive father still in the hospital, and Ivan and Katerina, who had searched for me for 33 years. I didn't know what to do next. Turn in my adoptive parents or forgive them? Embrace my biological parents or keep my distance from their unfamiliar world? It was all too heavy, too painful. I called Samantha, my voice trembling as I told her about the meeting. "Damien," she said, "you found them. That's the most incredible thing. But now, you need to decide what matters to you. I'll be here no matter what you choose." I nodded, though she couldn't see. I knew I stood at a crossroads, and whatever path I chose would change my life forever. But for the first time, I felt I was no longer adrift. The truth, however painful, had given me an anchor, and I would use it to shape my future. The days following my meeting with Ivan and Katerina Blackwood felt like a waking nightmare. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my adoptive mother, Anna, with her red-rimmed eyes, her trembling voice confessing her and my father's guilt. I saw Ivan and Katerina's gazes filled with hope mixed with anger as they learned I was their son. The DNA test had confirmed I was Marco Blackwood, but that name still felt foreign, like a coat that didn't fit. I was Damien Markovich, raised in a small house in Buffalo with simple meals and sad lullabies. How could I abandon that person, even knowing it was built on a lie? Ivan and Katerina were adamant about seeking justice. During a meeting at their Long Island home, Ivan slammed his hand on the table, his voice thick with rage. "They stole you from us, Marco. They took 33 years from this family. We'll bring them to court no matter how long it takes." Katerina, though gentler, nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "We don't want you to suffer," she said, "but we can't let this crime go unpunished." Their words cut into my heart like a knife. I understood their pain, the agony of parents who lost their child, searching in vain for 3 decades. But I couldn't erase the image of my mother, Anna, who held me when I fell off my bike, who stayed up late sewing to pay for my school. Though she was complicit in my kidnapping, her love was real, at least to me. And my father, Milan, now lay in the hospital, frail, possibly not surviving. If I let Ivan and Katerina press charges, my mother could be deported or worse, imprisoned. My father, if he lived, would face kidnapping charges. Could I live with destroying them? I turned to Samantha as I always did when I needed to unload. We sat on the sofa in my apartment, the dim yellow light casting shadows on her face. "Damien," she said, gripping my hand tightly, "I know you're torn, but you have to choose. If you let your biological parents press charges, your mother will pay a price. But if you stay silent, you might always feel guilt for denying justice to your real parents. What do you want for yourself?" I shook my head, feeling like my heart was being ripped in two. "Sam, I don't know. I want justice for Ivan and Katerina, but I can't hate my mother. She was wrong, but she's my mother. I don't know if I can live without her, even knowing what she did." Samantha looked at me, her eyes gentle but resolute. "You need to talk to your mother one last time. Make it clear the truth is out. See how she responds. Maybe that will help you decide." I knew she was right. I couldn't keep avoiding my mother. I called her, arranging to meet at the hospital where she was still by my father's side. When I arrived, she was sitting beside his bed, holding his hand, her eyes tired and full of worry. My father was awake but weak, his voice raspy and his gaze distant. When she saw me, my mother stood, her eyes flickering with panic. "Damien," she said, her voice trembling, "you came." I led her into the hallway, avoiding my father's gaze. "Mom," I said, my voice firm, "I've found my biological parents, Ivan and Katerina Blackwood. They know everything and they want to press charges against you and Dad. I need you to tell me the truth one last time. Is it true that Dad took me from the Sarajevo hospital? Did you know and let it happen?" My mother collapsed into a chair, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Damien, I already told you I didn't want it, but your father, he said it was the only way we could survive. I love you. You're everything to me. Please don't let them destroy us." Anger flared inside me, but so did a deep pain. "Mom," I said, my voice trembling, "the truth is out. I can't stop Ivan and Katerina. They have a right to justice. But I'm giving you a choice. Turn yourself in. Tell the truth to the police. It's the only way I can forgive you." My mother sobbed but nodded, her eyes filled with resignation. "I'll do it, Damien. For you." Her words were like a knife, but also a release. I knew I'd made the right choice, not for justice, but because I needed closure to move forward. My mother kept her promise. A week later, she went to the Buffalo police station and confessed everything. How my father took me from the Sarajevo hospital and forged papers to immigrate to the US. She cried as she recounted it. Her voice choked, but her eyes showed she was ready to face the consequences. The police noted that my father, Milan, was the mastermind, but he passed away in the hospital just days after my confrontation with my mother. So he faced no legal repercussions. My mother received 2 years of probation thanks to her voluntary confession and the special circumstances of the war. I sat in the courtroom watching her bow her head before the judge and felt a part of my heart lighten, though it still ached. I met Ivan and Katerina Blackwood again at their Long Island home. They embraced me, calling me Marco with voices full of love. They wanted me to take back my real name to become part of the Blackwood family, but I asked for time. "I've been Damien Markovich for 33 years, I said, my voice low. "I need to learn how to be Marco Blackwood." They nodded, their eyes full of understanding, and offered to support me in rebuilding my life, but emphasized that I should prove myself. I agreed. I didn't want to rely on their wealth. I wanted to find my own path, as I always had. I returned to Buffalo to see my mother one last time before her probation began. She sat in the small house on the worn armchair, her eyes tired but gentle when she saw me. "Damien," she said, "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know I love you. Everything I did, however wrong, was to give you a better life." I took her hand, feeling like I was back in my childhood when she sang me to sleep. "I forgive you," I said, tears streaming down my face. "But I can't forget what I've lost. I just want you to live well for me." I left Buffalo with a heart both heavy and relieved. I began meeting Ivan and Katerina more often, attending family gatherings at their home. For the first time, I felt I belonged somewhere, no longer a stranger caught between two worlds. Samantha was always by my side, a guiding light through the stormy days. We started planning our wedding, and she smiled when I said, "You're my real family, no matter what happens." At a family gathering with the Blackwoods, I stood beside Ivan and Katerina, looking at relatives I never knew I had. Under the sunset, I raised a glass, smiling at them, at Samantha, and at myself. I was Damien. I was Marco, the son of two families, one that stole me, one that lost me. I had found the truth, and though it was painful, it gave me the strength to shape my future, a future where I no longer ran from myself, 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 from myself,